Okay, the first part of the quiz should have been A, C, D, F, D, E, F, the way you see here. Steroids were A, triglycerides C, monosaccharides D, phospholipids E, and polysaccharides F. In the next slide, the next part of this quiz review, I will show you each structure and go over exactly why each one is what it is again. In question 6, it says, what determines if fatty acid is saturated or unsaturated? It's the number of double bonds, and just that simple. If it's unsaturated, then it has double bonds. In other words, when you have a carbon chain that, remember, is represented in a diagram with a zigzaggy line, each dot being a carbon, the hydrogens are not shown. When you have a double bond, this molecule is not saturated. In other words, it's not full of double bonds. So not being full of double bonds means that you can add hydrogens to it. So we call that not saturated. Saturated means full. So if you see a double bond, then it is not saturated. If it's just single bonds, up and down, no double bonds in the structure, then we call it saturated. You got to get that straight because it's going to be on the test as well. The phospholipid question was pretty straightforward. It's that, and this is a drawing, it was a nice sketch, but this person did not label the parts, where this would be hydrophilic. Why? Because phosphate, one of those functional groups you're supposed to memorize, is charged. It has a negative charge. So remember, anything with a negative charge or a positive charge is going to be soluble in water. So the head, and that's another thing that Mr. Gusick had told you, the head is hydrophilic. In other words, it will dissolve in water. The tails are hydrophobic. Why? Because they're nothing but hydrogen and carbon and carbon and carbon, and it's just a chain of carbons with hydrogens. And anytime you have a chain of carbons, whether double or single bond, they're nonpolar. Carbon and hydrogen are not polar bonds. What is the most common steroid found in the human body? It is cholesterol, and that's it. It's just that simple. It was a simple answer, and it's cholesterol. It's in every cell of the body, and it helps to stabilize the membrane. That you also learned, but all I was looking for here was the word cholesterol. What are the two parts of triglyceride molecule? It's the glycerol, and that's that 3-carbon molecule. There it is. And then 3 fatty acids. So this person was excellent, and in fact ended up gaining a +2 points for being complete. Actually, the most complete answer to this particular question. What is the function of a starch? Function is to store energy. It stores energy or it stores glucose, either way. Now, this person wrote 616. Actually, the actual glucose molecule would be 612,6. But most sugars are going to have the ratio of 1 carbon to 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen. So you're always going to have, in the case of 612,6, you'll notice if you reduce that ratio, it's going to be 1 to 2 to 1. That's the ratio that counts. Now these pictures were taken, these were the pictures on the back of your quiz, and that's what you were supposed to use for the first section to identify what molecule was which. And it came directly from your notes. You'll notice that the steroid here, A is the steroid, and it has the characteristic ring structure that we had discussed in class. That hexagon, that those 3 rings, those 3 hexagonal rings, all bonded to one another, and 1 pentagon ring. That is the characteristic steroid shape. If you see 1, 2, 3 rings that are all hexagons, with the 4th ring being a pentagon, then it is a steroid. And you need to be able to look at it and say, that's a steroid. Now, here is your monomer of that we call glucose. Here's this monomer of sugar. It's a monosaccharide, right? If there's that 6-sided structure, it's all C and O's and H's. There's nothing else there. C, O's, and H's. Having C's, O's, and H's, 1 hexagon, that is a glucose. You'll notice that there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons. There's your hexagon. It's a glucose molecule. Carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. That is a monomer of the saccharides, and we also call it a monosaccharide. Remember, saccharide means sugar, mono being one. Well, this is a disaccharide. Maltose is a disaccharide. Again, here's the same structure you just saw here. Here's your monomer. There's your monomer. And you're putting 2 monomers together. You're getting a then the word saccharide. Okay? Now, here's your triglycerides. There's your glycerides. You have is made of, if you remember the question on the other side of your quiz, the glyceride is made of a glycerol molecule. There it is, 3 carbons, and you saw it in the drawing that the young lady had drawn before. And then it has 3 fatty acids. In this case, there's 1 saturated fatty acids. Notice it's saturated because there's no double bonds. They're all single bonds, nice and straight. This is another saturated fatty acid. Again, all single bonds, no double bonds. And then an unsaturated fatty acid. There's that double bond that makes it unsaturated. So that's 3 fatty acids, 1, 2, 3, and you have 1 glycerol molecule. Those are the 2 parts to a triglyceride. The phospholipid, which was drawn earlier, you saw the drawing that looked like this. That's fine. What is a phospholipid made of? It is made of a phosphate, hence the phospho part. It has made of that glycerol molecule. And then it's made of 2 fatty acids. 2 fatty acids. So actually 3 parts to a phospholipid. That glycerol, which becomes important, that glycerol here, remember, is now, you can draw it right here. It's the same thing as number 2 down here. You have a phosphate, a glycerol, and then these 2 fatty acids. One, again, being saturated. Notice it's straight. It's straight because the carbons are all one right after the other. And here you have a double bond, which causes this phospholipid to actually have a kink in its chain, so it kind of bends out. You'll notice that all 3 of these are drawings of the same thing. Now, over here on F, that's your polysaccharide. Here's your monosaccharide, that's mono. Here's your disaccharide, that's 2. Here's your polysaccharide, that's many. Poly, again, meaning more than 2 or many, and the word saccharide meaning sugar. Now, interestingly, this is also cellulose. Cellulose is this long chain. Now, another polymer or polysaccharide would be that thing called starch. And now you know, and hopefully you do know, that the starch is used for the storage of sugar in order to be able, the plant to be able to use it for food later, or if we come along, we'll steal it and eat it for food ourselves. Okay, I hope that explained the biomolecule quiz. Study this stuff because it will be on the test. All right, good luck.